Welcome to our special panel for this week. We're happy to be joined in person in our Albuquerque studios by Ed Williams. He's from Searchlight, New Mexico. Across the table is Merritt Allen of Vox Optima Public Relations. And back across the table next to Ed is Carol Suzuki. We welcome her. She's a law professor at the University of New Mexico. Now we begin with that verdict out of Rio Arriba County in the case of that 8-year-old child who was allegedly raped by her foster parent in northern New Mexico. Earlier this month, the jury awarded $485 million in damages on behalf of a girl who was living in a specialized foster care program that was supposed to provide her with behavioral health services. But the lawsuit, first filed in 2019, alleges a nonprofit company called Family Works, licensed by CYFD, placed the 8-year-old girl in the care of Clarence Garcia, who repeatedly raped her. The lawsuit also alleges Family Works knew about prior sexual assault allegations against Mr. Garcia. Now, that $485 million award appears to be the largest in state's history. And Merritt, when we see an amount like that, we tend to think the jury was sending a message. Now, what was that message in this case in your view?
New Mexicans have absolutely had it with the child welfare system.
Right. Bottom line.
We're just done.
Mm-hmm.
We're just done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as much an indictment against CYFD as it was against Family Works.
Right.
Our child welfare system, it's not a matter of foster parents missing medical appointments or a kid going to school in the winter without a coat. Right. Children are being abused and children are dying, and it happens every month. And New Mexicans are done with it.
Right, exactly. Carol, first of all, welcome to the table. Welcome to New Mexico PBS and The Line. Good to see you. I got a question about what Merritt's point here. Does the state's repeated history of foster child care abuse make the impact? Did it make an impact on this verdict and this judgment to have this much money on top of it?
So the verdict of $485 million is $80 million in compensatory damages, meaning the child's emotional damages, her past expenses, her future medical expenses for the trauma from the assault. And that would mean that $405 million is for punitive damages. The punitive damages, they do send a message, but they send a message to Acadia to not do this again, to do this misconduct, to punish Acadia and the other defendants, and also to other organizations that do this kind of work to deter them from this type of conduct. But the punitive damages are for this case, for this child. They're not to indict these companies for all of the other children who have been abused in the system, but who were not before this jury.
Interesting points there. I want to circle back to one thing you mentioned there in just a quick sec, but I want to introduce Ed. Thank you for being at the table as well. I love your work over there. You've reported extensively for Searchlight about failures in the state CYFD system. Mr. Garcia has a direct connection to this case out of Rio Arriba County, certainly according to your reporting, but where does this case fit in the broader problems that you've documented for a lot of years now about CYFD? Where does the Garcia thing fit into that overall picture?
Well, I mean, I think that throughout the course of my reporting on this, on CYFD, I mean, one thing that we see pretty regularly is kind of a desperation on the part of the state to find a bed for a kid, any bed, it doesn't matter where. We reported that Family Works and a number of other foster care companies were receiving repeated violations of their licensing requirements, but we're still getting renewed. And so we have kids getting sent to places where abuse is occurring, where there are people with criminal histories, fostering children. We have kids living in homeless shelters and the state CYFD office building.
Wow,
and
the office building.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
And this is because there's just nowhere to put these kids. And so we see a pattern of the state just trying to find a bed. I mean, part to avoid them being in the office building, right? But they'll put a kid somewhere and then come, do the safety checks, the background checks and stuff later. And so, this is just another case of children being placed in inappropriate places that could have been avoided, but we have never had a functioning foster care system, and this is what we see as a result.
Merritt, several defendants, Ms. Suzuki named a couple, but in the lawsuit includes the former foster parents, the nonprofit Family Works, Inc., Acadia Healthcare that was mentioned, and its subsidiaries, Youth and Family Centered Services of New Mexico and Desert Hills. A lot of people, potentially touched up here. But the state was not named a defendant in this case. Any sense of why?
That I don't know, and that's sort of a surprise. However, the state has its own issues and its own its own lawsuits. One thing that kind of concerns me with this and the volume of it, while I can't say it's not justified, although it is extremely large. One thing that I think is concerning, we've already seen a healthcare crisis regarding a provider shortage caused in part by no caps on malpractice, driving insurance rates up, driving providers out of the state. We're already, as Ed pointed out, in a child welfare crisis with a lack of beds for kids. This will drive insurance rates up. And we've already had a purge of providers at the hands of CYFD, and this may discourage providers from coming to the state or drive more providers out.
Interesting point there. What's your prediction on that? What's your sense of it?
Oh, I think it will definitely make the pool of available providers smaller on the private side for sure.
Yeah, that needs some attention for sure.
If I could just,
Please, go ahead, Ed.
To the question of why wasn't CYFD named, this was happening at a time when CYFD was trying to shut down, was really embedding in residential treatment centers, including Desert Hills, which was running Family Works. So the licensing department of CYFD was trying to bring this company into compliance. And that's part of the reason that the attorneys didn't think that they were necessarily complicit in this problem, because they were active. And this is one of, this is one of several residential treatment programs and foster care programs that have been shut down. And you're right, there's a deficit now of beds. And that's why we have kids living in homeless shelters. That's why we have kids who need mental health care in the CYFD office, because we've shut these companies down.
Every time I drive by Hogaris on Griegos, my stomach clenches, thinking about the work they used to do years ago, and they're not doing it now. It's a shame. Carol, question, what's likely to happen next in this case? Is this simply a matter of a series of checks being written, I hate to say it that way, or will there be a legal challenge and a long road ahead? What's your again, you're not in the room, I'm not asking you to make predictions here, but your sense of that, if you were in the room, what direction would you think they would be going in?
Well, I believe that there are 3 other children who are alleged to have been abused by Mr. Garcia. So there are 3 upcoming trials. So the defendants need to think about what are they going to do. Are they going to go forward with those trials? Are they going to try to settle those matters? As is this particular matter, there are a number of options. I don't know what defendants actually will do, but they could go back to the judge and ask that the judge either reconsider even the merits of the case or just the damages themselves, saying that they were excessive. They could also appeal to the Court of Appeals.
Oh, no kidding. Interesting. Yes. And what would be the process there if they appealed to the Court of Appeals? What would be the outcome they might be looking for?
They would also be looking for a reduction of damages and perhaps also redetermination on the merits of the case.
Oh, interesting. That far into it. Okay. Interesting point there. Ed, let me stay on this side of the table for a quick second. Something I want to ask you about this. What responsibility does the state have over these companies that they're doing thorough research on where they're placing kids and such? Who is watching over these companies? Does the state have a system to do that as well?
Well, CYFD is responsible for making sure that the companies are in compliance. The companies are basically, we outsource. This is treatment foster care, not regular foster care, so it's a higher level of care. And it's usually run by nonprofits. This company with Ernesto Garcia was a for-profit company, but that's a little unusual. So they're licensed by CYFD's licensing department, and then they are responsible for placing the kids and making sure that they're in compliance with state law. But what we found in our reporting is that there would be serious violations of licensing requirements, like failure to do safety checks, criminal background histories, all these different kinds of things for foster parents. And that the license would be renewed anyway. It's almost a rubber stamp process. And so that, I think, gets back to this issue of this desperation to find a place for these kids, and this, we just cut corners so we can find a bed.
Let me ask the question to all of you here, just about a minute each. Start saying with you, Ed, what's the deeper consequences here for the children in the middle of these cases? Is there any amount of money that can make up for these kind of abuses?
I mean, it's hard for me to put myself in the position of these kids, but you have to remember, I mean, these are children who are in the system because they were traumatized and abused. Right. I mean, they wouldn't be in this situation in the first place, you know, if they had come from a safe background and hadn't suffered trauma. So there's something just doubly cruel about having a system that re-traumatizes them after, you know, as kids, they've been abused by their parents or guardians. So, you know, I don't know if you can put a dollar amount on this kind of thing.
Good points there. Carol Suzuki, again, can it make up, because money can't make up for everything, but it can help some things. So what's your sense of that as well?
Right, when we talk about these civil wrongs, the only thing the court can do is provide money. And there's no amount of money that can ever really make this child whole. You can never take away the fact that she was repeatedly assaulted by people who were supposed to take care of her, that she was put in a very dangerous position. So she can get treatment with that money, but it will never really make her whole. And I'd also like to comment in terms of caps. So these types of cases generally are taken by attorneys who work on contingency, meaning they put in effort and money, and they only get paid if the plaintiff gets a settlement or gets an award from the court. So when there are caps, it means that the juries are not able to really compensate the plaintiff for what the jury thinks should be given to this particular plaintiff. And also, the attorneys might not get fully paid, and what the contingency money they're taking is really from the plaintiff. And so one of our concerns should be is that when there are caps on tort awards, which is a civil wrong, then attorneys might not take these cases, right? And it would be a problem because an 8-year-old child in therapeutic foster care, she can't pay an hourly rate to an attorney to take this case. She needs someone who's willing to take the risk to protect her and to make these claims against these defendants.
I'm glad you got that in, Mrs. Suzuki. Absolutely. Give the last word to you, Merritt. I mean, again, money, as we've heard, money can't make up for everything, but is the message strong enough to get some change going here in New Mexico?
Well, I think it's certainly gets everyone's attention, but as Ed said, as we were preparing to tape, child welfare stories get everyone's attention now. I mean, it's certainly, I think, in most New Mexicans' minds as a concern. And you know, the point that's been made throughout this segment is there aren't enough beds, and it's very hard to get and recruit new foster parents. And I would just like to make a plea, if it's something you've thought about. There's an organization, New Mexico Children First. It's nmchildfirst.org, and they offer resources and training for foster parents, because that's one area where CYFD is lacking, is training and resources, and oftentimes foster parents don't really know what they're supposed to do next. And New Mexico Child First offers a lot of resources for foster parents. So if you're thinking about fostering, I suggest you go to that website. They'll help you and bring you along, because obviously that's what's needed, is more beds for kids.
That's right, and homes, people willing to get into the game. Exactly right. Thanks to Ed Williams from Searchlight New Mexico, UNM Law Professor Carol Suzuki, and Merritt Allen from Vox Optima Public Relations. You can join the conversation too. Just send a note to our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages.